Good morning, everybody. It's your favorite aspiring revolutionary here, a wandering author on top of a skateboard, riding solo in the northeastern part of Nashville, Tennessee. I think this is Peeler Park. And as always, my message remains the same: spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. Yesterday, we talked about some of the developments that we saw in Greece's archaic age culture towards the latter half. And during that, we talked about Thales of Miletus and the other pre-Socratic philosophers. Now, the most interesting thing about these philosophers isn't so much the ideas that they shared, which they shared plenty, but it was the way of thinking that they gave to their people. You see, before Thales of Miletus' school, the natural tendency for people has always been to attribute things to myth and to gods, right? And after Thales comes onto the scene, we see that change for the first time in recorded history, at least in the West. Now, Thales, it's a name that you should remember, although I had never heard about him until I started doing research for these topics. But even Aristotle considered Thales to be the founder of Greek philosophy. And that quote that I opened the video with, Thales, the founder of the school of philosophy, says the permanent entity is water, was from Aristotle's book, Metaphysics. And it's referencing the biggest idea the dude had, which isn't anything crazy, which is just that the originating principle of everything is water. That doesn't matter, though. What matters is how he arrived at that thinking. He went and used what the Greeks would call logos, but what we would call rational thinking. And before then, again, it's hard to describe because we've all grown up in a rationally oriented world, right? I'm riding with an iPhone on a skateboard, and that's hardly a technological achievement in today's age. But Herodotus mentions Thales and says that he predicted an eclipse using math that he learned in Egypt in 585 BCE, which tells us two things. One, the dude was great at math, and two, even people like Herodotus have mentioned him. Diogenes also quotes the Chronicle of Apollodorus of Athens, claiming Thales died at 78 during the 58 Olympiad. So we see his name mentioned again. Now, investigating what this dude actually did is harder than you would think, because back during the time the Greeks were around, there was a tradition where anything that was like a scientific advancement would just be, hey, how y'all, attributed to whatever the wise sage of the day was. Like I said, Thales was the first of the 7 sages of Greece. Plutarch even reports a humorous story about him, which I've mentioned him whenever we were talking about Roman history, and mentions how Solon visited Thales and asked why he remained childless, and Thales apparently answered that he didn't like the idea of the responsibility of kids, which I think a lot of us can sympathize with, even 3,000 years later, right? Now, Aristotle also gave us a really cool story that all the crypto fans are going to love. Thales is apparently the first guy to ever whale or moon as a result of trading options contracts, making it a first in human history, even since the advent of crypto. For only person to ever profit from trading options. Basically, Aristotle says that he bought the right to use plows or olive presses whenever they weren't being used for a discounted price, and then whenever the demand spiked, he sold them for more. Literally textbook options trade, or futures contract, I mean. There's also a lot of attributions in astrology to Thales. Apparently he used that eclipse to help his allies in a battle one day. But Aristotle writes in De Anima that Thales thought all things are full of gods. And what this tells us is he believed the animating principle was inside of everything, not like a separate god the way previous Greeks thought. He also used geometry to sight ships, see how far away they were from shore, using like right triangles, and calculated the height of pyramids accurately, really long time ago, before you could Google that stuff, right? Proclus, another Greek historian, wrote that Thales was the first to go to Egypt and bring back to Greece this study in reference to geometry. Again, this dude, Thales, shows up in Diogenes, Plutarch's, Pliny the Elder's writing, Cicero, almost every major philosopher of all time has mentioned Thales as some kind of influence. But again, it's hard to pin down what this dude did. And it's because it wasn't his ideas, it was his way of thinking. Again, he taught people to rationally question the world. Thales assures us that water is the principle of all things, and that God is the mind which shaped and created all things from water, from the book Logos. And then in the long sojourn of philosophy, there has hardly existed a philosopher or historian of philosophy who did not mention Thales and try to characterize him in a certain way. He is generally recognized as having brought something new to human thought. Ever since, interested persons have been asking what that new something is. That's literally from the Wikipedia page on Thales. I thought that was pretty funny, though, the way that was written. Again, widely regarded as massively influential, Thales influenced practically every Western philosopher who has come since his time, including the pre-Socratic philosophers Anaximander, Pythagoras, and then Aristotle. And if you tried to put a word to it, he was a naturalist. He tried to elevate truth above other principles, and he stands out for being firmly rooted in logos instead of mythos. He quit using myths to explain the world and used rationality. And as a result of his influence, pre-Socratic Greeks began searching for explanation in nature rather than anthropomorphic gods. Again, same concept I've been saying this whole time. Now, just to remind you guys, logos is one of the 3 modes of persuasion that Aristotle covers in his book Rhetoric, which we'll cover that whole book at some point too. But pathos and ethos are pretty easy to explain. Ethos is like a moral argument. Pathos is an emotional one. And then logos is the argument in itself, like the actual content, the rationality behind your argument. The Stoics saw logos as the act of reasoning pervading and animating the universe. And that's it. Almost dropped that there. I've been doing a lot more skating lately. We'll have to see how the microphone worked on this video. If it's not too bad, I may do some more. But again, this right here is just, we're doing some biopics of the pre-Socratic philosophers, starting with Thales of Miletus. His reputation, outstanding, mentioned in Plutarch's writings, Pliny the Elder's writings, Diogenes of Laertius, Anaximander, Anaximenes, Pythagoras, all claim he had influenced them. It wasn't his ideas that were so influential, more so it was his way of thinking. He used logos and really demonstrated the power of logos and achieved some impressive feats mathematically, like it demonstrated geometry's practical use. And his largest contribution was the way he arrived at his thoughts, you know? We rarely think about how our modes of thinking or the way we think differs from the people who came before us, but I can guarantee you that even in the last 2 or 3 generations, there's been a big change. Having an iPhone like this is something that no generation before ours could have even dreamt of, you know? That has to have some kind of impact on how we think and who we are, what we've become. Anyways, I will be departing from Nashville sometime within the next day or 2. Tomorrow, I guess we will be talking about Greek history again. No, American history again. And then I want to start doing some more Stoic and Western philosophic concepts, kind of like we're doing the biopics of the individual philosophers. But I've been getting a lot better at skating lately. Let's see if I can do this on camera. Yep, nice. 180. Anyways, that's all I've got for you guys today. This is a wandering author here, reminding you that we are all the authors of our own lives. As always, my message remains the same. Spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. What are you guys doing to inspire, uplift, and empower your communities today? Because this world isn't changing unless we all do our part. You can count on me to do mine daily. Until next time, I love you.